Good morning. We're still in the morning. um, Today, I want to remind you all that each one of us makes dozens and even hundreds of decisions every day. We really act as if that's almost inconsequential. Today, I'd like you to consider that not only are your decisions important, but that you can use better processes to think about how you make those decisions. I think Ike has reminded us all how important our decisions are. When you were preparing for Ike and trying to make sure that your children were safe during all the tornado warnings, did you throw them in the closet and say, stay there because it's dangerous out of here? Or did you, like a friend of mine, get creative and create a mini movie theater in your powder room? Every day, we make these small decisions, but occasionally we have to make big decisions. We decide where to live, and we decide whether we're going to have children, where we consider all the options, and we try to think about the pros and cons. But how many of you looked at the floodplain maps before you picked where to live? I can see who the engineers in the room are. Deciding on where to live is one of the most important decisions you can make. It's a big financial commitment, and it has other qualities too, but it's really a big decision. And what did you think about? What did you think was important? Even big decisions like this rarely get the attention they deserve. Usually, we think about what's in front of us, and we go with that. We make a decision and move on. Quick decisions help us move through our daily life on a regular basis. It works for us most of the time. I'd like to ask you, how would your life be different if, when faced with a decision, you stopped, thought for a minute, evaluated what the real question is and what the possible consequences might be before you came up with your choice by thinking of lots of options? Occasionally, we get stuck in what society wants us to do. Our society encourages us to think short term, to think linearly, to go forward, to think quickly. We start that in elementary school with multiple choice tests, followed by the fact that our whole corporate system and our political world focuses on the very short term and not on the long term and not how things work. But while each one of us stays focused on the small problem in front of us, we miss an infinite number of opportunities to make the better future, to make better decisions. Each of us is capable of looking beyond the current moment, of identifying the bigger picture, of taking a different path. And when we use our time and our skills to think outside the box, to look holistically at the situation, we begin to see new possibilities. We see new choices. And when we pay attention to those choices, not only can we make a better decision today for the small item that we're thinking about, but we can also make a better decision for the future. Our inability to see the big picture is pretty obvious when we go through our daily life. Think about a trip to the mall, where when you leave, you tend to end up at an exit with 10 or 12 or 15 other cars, all trying to turn left. Why are we all there? I don't know, but I think it's probably because we looked at the closest exit and headed that way. We didn't take 3 seconds to consider what our options were. Now, the quick straight line to the quick answer is sometimes the right way to go. If there's a drowning person or someone trapped in a house with the water rising, the only question is how to get them out of the house as quickly as possible without putting yourself or anyone else in danger. On the other hand, many of us at work actually use processes to help us make better decisions. But some of us use design thinking, where we try to get rid of our assumptions and analyze what's going on and figure out what the real question is before we use that information to brainstorm lots of possible options. Companies like Apple, IKEA, and Samsung use that kind of process every day in order to make the products we use all the time. Some companies or some organizations that we don't think of as very creative are using these processes to try and do better. So think about TxDOT, who's trying to improve the traffic through downtown. They're actually thinking outside their typical box. They're looking at changing the traffic flow to increase the number of cars that can get through without increasing the area too much. Then there's communities that are using this kind of process to reinvent themselves. Think Detroit or Greensburg, Kansas, where in 2007, a tornado came through and destroyed 95% of all their buildings. The big question of the day was, would they rebuild? But the townspeople held weekly tent meetings to consider their options. They looked at the possibilities. Greensburg has rebuilt as a green town. It's considered the greenest in America. They have a sustainable comprehensive plan, most LEED certified buildings per capita of anywhere in the world, and a continuing recovery plan. Should Houston be using a similar process to figure out what we should do post-Ike? Should we be advocating for a process where each one of us is part of the solution? I'm sure you've all seen It's a Wonderful Life with George Bailey, where he thinks that he's not an important person, but he gets to see what life would be like without his operation in it. He discovers that his actions have made a difference in his town. Like George, each of our decisions bounce around in the universe, and they impact not only ourselves, but also everyone else. And like corporations, we can use processes to help us think, to help us do better. In order to do that, we need to create an environment where we can access all the information that's around us. Good ideas are rarely like light bulbs in our head. What we need to do is pay attention to what's going on around us. Our reliance on the internet tends to reinforce our viewpoints, and usually our friends are like-minded also. When we hang around with like-minded people, we don't have a reason to question our assumptions, question our choices. So, in order to make sure that you don't create an echo chamber in your head, attend events like today, where we're all learning about new things and having things to think about. Read widely divergent views, talk to people with different opinions, watch educational television, take classes, attend cultural events. All of these ideas, and many more, help to create the library of ideas in your head where you can see new consequences and new options and new choices. I personally take a reading vacation every year where I read 10 or 15 books, nonfiction, take notes, all at once in 5 to 7 days, and I just am amazed at the new connections and the new things I see. Good decision making doesn't have to take a long time. Next time you come across a question, take a second and decide should you think more clearly about it. Don't waste your time on everything. Focus on the things that can use some creativity. If it's an untied shoelace, tie your shoe and get on with your run. If it's a quick trip to the mall, look around and see what's the best exit to take. But if it's a little more complicated, take a few seconds or a few minutes to analyze it. Ask yourself a couple of quick questions. What's the real question? What's the actual situation? Who are the stakeholder and what are the resources? Then consider time. How does time play into this? Will my decision play out now? How about in 5 minutes? What about 6 months? And then in 10 years? When you change your focus from the short term to the bigger picture, you begin to see new choices, new options. These options are important as you move forward. They allow you to make better decisions. Our ability to impact the world is obvious, and it happens every single day. The next time you're headed out to pick up your 4th grader at the local school, consider a recent study for a local elementary school here in Houston. The carpool line takes 30 minutes to clear, but there are parents that arrive an hour and a half early in order to avoid sitting in the line. They sit in their cars for 90 minutes with the engine running. Think about all the options they had. They could have come and waited 30 minutes in line, or shown up late and only waited 10 minutes. They could have ridden their bikes with their kid to school, or they could have walked. Or, last of all, they could have gone around the corner and met them where there isn't a line at all. I'm sure there's even other options that I didn't think of. However, each one of these options has an effect not only on your time, your money, but everyone's health and air quality, and has an impact on each person, you, your children, their friends, and your community at whole. Now, I know you're all sitting there going, oh, yes, she's come up with that one little everyday thing that makes a big difference or makes a small difference. But in my life, I don't have time, and the things I do don't really make a difference. I'd like you to suspend your skepticism and go with the ideas that's in front of you. You can create a process for yourself that will help you make better decisions, that can help you think more globally and more creatively. And your decisions matter. If a small thing like picking up your child at school can make a small difference in so many people's lives, and each of us makes dozens, if not hundreds of decisions every day, how would the world be different if you create a process for yourself where you stop, think for a minute, identify what the real question is and what the possible consequences are before you come up with lots of possible options and pick your path. Try it for 6 months. I believe you will see both small and large changes in the world around you, and I believe that you will make a bigger impact. Thank you.